Okay, I'm excited to be here with you all and share my journey to get stakeholder buy-in for accessibility for one of our products. My name is Nurul Amin. My pronouns are he and him. I'm an Asian, whitish skin tone person. And today I adorn my DQ turtleneck with the tagline digital accessibility and equality is my jam. And I'm also wearing a blue jacket. So, whoa, this particular picture that you're seeing here shows a happy setting, isn't it? However, I'm sure not many of us would have seen this in our organizations every time when we talk about accessibility. We, as accessibility champions, when we try to convince our stakeholders, it's very difficult, right? And for me, again, this is an experience deja vu because I have been through that journey. However, I was able to maneuver and find ways, basically, to find an opportunity, not just to convince my leadership team, but also persuade and influence them to think about accessibility and take it very seriously. I work for a company called Mitratech Holdings, and we are into legal, regulatory, and compliance industry. Our products are used by the general counsel, law firms, attorneys, CISOs, the chief information security officers, law regulators, and human resources professionals. Let's get started. So for the next 1 hour, we are going to talk about why are we talking about this and who are we really going to talk about and how did, when I say achieve, how did I get through this through Mitratech, at Mitratech? I'm a fan of 3W, 5W, 1H principle, and here I'm just taking two of them. So how many of us have heard this question? It's a classic question, it's a legacy. Today, technology is the answer, but what was the question? Cedric Prince asked this question 1966, right? Even after 6 decades, this particular question still is valid because you can replace the first word technology to be accessibility. And why am I talking about this today? Because I am your accessibility evangelist. So I work for Mitratech. My previous companies that I have worked for are Bank of New York Mellon, Accenture, Deloitte. Well, I'm not going to talk about these four nuggets on the top because today's discussion is all about accessibility. And I'm going to talk about the last three, which is so dear and near to me. I evangelize the idea of accessibility for Mitratech portfolio products. I have trained around 100 plus developers, QA engineers, and product managers and product owners on the world of accessibility. And also, I'm today currently institutionalizing a program, an accessibility program at Mitratech. So let's get started. I'm excited as you were. When I started this journey years back, I asked this question online because that's really what we all do, right? We go online, do a bit of research to find what is happening in the field. And when I asked this question, I got surprisingly the same responses in different blogs and research sites. And here are these responses. Well, I'm not going to detail it out here, but even when I had to ask a generative AI about the same question in different fashions, I at least used 18 different prompts. Still, the question has the same answer. So I was literally thinking about it, and I felt there should be a pragmatic approach to it and something which is evidence-backed. And that's what I'm trying to talk to you about. I'm going to show you how we were able to crack this at Mitratech for one of our product called Tracker. And folks, you can stop me at any point in time when you have a question. And I am happy to answer them at any point in time. So coming back to Tracker, Tracker is an application to automate Form I-9. And folks in US are pretty much aware of it, but Form I-9 is just a statutory requirement from USCIS, Department of Homeland Security, where it is used to verify a new hire's, an employee's identity and work authorization. So it's traditionally a paper-based form, which gets converted into an online medium, which is all fine. But during remote working situations like after COVID or during COVID, remote hire workflows got so much picking up. And the shift to mobile also happened so much. So I took this as an opportunity to find ways by which we can sneak in accessibility and find a way out of, right? And yes, over the course of 1 hour, we are going to talk about accessibility synonymously as A11Y, as we are all aware of. And let's get to talk about how we are going to talk in terms of stakeholders. So we need to define stakeholders, right? Generally, when we talk about stakeholders for accessibility, who comes to our mental picture? It is mostly the person who you see here, right? The C-suite leadership team. Well, I did not take that approach because I am a person who likes to take baby steps, continuous improvement, and cyclic iterations. So I took the other way approach, which is the bottoms up approach, started with designer. So I'm going to talk about 5 different stakeholders or personas from whom each of you should be able to get a stakeholder buy, right? And again, as I said, a fan being 5H, 5W1H model, I'm going to talk about why should you even think about convincing your stakeholder XYZ, and how could you do it, and what would be the possible outcome. And I'm also going to show you how did we do it. Talking about the designer, a classic problem that I see today is most of new age designers, they have a problem understanding or prioritizing form and function. And even if they were able to, accessibility becomes an afterthought for them mostly because product richness, feature, and functionality is what generally they think about because they don't have inclusivity in their design process. So what we could attempt doing here is, and what did we do here is, we made them or we injected this principle of what I call DACD, which is not an industry term, don't search it online. It's rhetorically used. That is differently abled centered design. So try to inject these principles and philosophy into their model of today, which could be UCD, HCD, or Lean and Agile MVP, and try to see how that beautifully comes out. There will be a methodological process coming up. Also feed them with resources, checklist, best practices, all of which is going to help them understand and make them more comfortable about how inclusive design practice works. And I'm going to show you in a bit how we did it. So first, we went over, talked about what is a disability. And in the realm of web accessibility, what are we really talking about, right? Only those 5 areas of impairments, not the others. And we talked about tracker. We talked about employee who needs to, a new hire or an employee who needs to provide that document, automated document, where it verifies the legality. So we exposed the persona to be not just your normal users. Normal users could be varied, right? And as designers, UX designers, we go ahead and find nuances between different personas between the segment of normal users. But expand your reach. Don't just look at your users who are normal enough, who can do all perform tasks like you and me at ease. However, look at other folks who are a little misfortunate in terms of having a disability or an impairment, and also show them how and what access needs they may have when they want to use the product, like filling a form. Show them approaches to accessibility. Tell them, hey, there are ways by which we can tackle this problem or look at this problem. One could be an inclusive design approach, which is more philosophical based. Yeah, there are people around this approach who have created so many toolkits, Microsoft being the best. However, there is another approach which is process driven. Either of the two, the company's appetite is. Just look at it. Most often than not, what I have seen is folks are okay for the second one, which is process centric. And if that's the case, expose them what those guidelines are and tell them for each of those guidelines, there is a way by which one or more access needs are provided, right? So they are able to connect the dots. Finally, talk to them about various tools and techniques which are available. Well, I'm not going to get into the details. If there is any particular question on a particular slide, you can stop me and we can discuss that more. However, we will just fly through. because there is so much content that I wanted to share. And finally, also give them some checklist, best practices. We talked about how resources and materials are going to make them fulfilled, equipped enough so that they become better designers who can create accessible products. Now that we have empowered our designers, let's look at our developer kind of story. For a developer, the most important problem when it comes to accessibility is they don't know what should be done about it. No one had taught them, no one had told them what to do about it. And that's particularly what is the ground reality. And thanks to all the not so easy consume resources which are available, which is really so difficult for any particular developer to get abreast of, right? As much as to say that there is a developer portal available for, let's say, for Facebook API, that's so easy to consume. So developers mostly procrastinate this and keep it to the later part. They sometimes factor it only after development, which never happens. And again, how we could help them, give them methods. There is a lot of madness, so there needs to be a method. It is a process-driven approach. Show them process, make them understand how this particular process fits in their CI/CD pipeline, and give them the necessary tools. And let's see how we have done it. Development and testing practices for A11Y includes various stages of development, be it in design, when a developer understands the design marks which are coming from the designers, obviously. So they can obviously do a color contrast checker. Needless to say, designers should be doing that before, but developers should also understand how to do it. They have other tools at their disposal, like there are so many other tools in the market, right? An important and a significant tool that we use is Axe DevTools. It inspects the code, and as you start developing, it starts giving you results on or issues that goes behind accessibility. And also, a lot of bookmarklets help developers understand what's going on the page, undermine the effort that has gone in creating those arias, right? So there are various ways by which the entire toolkit comes into play, and expose each one of them to the developer. Empower them to say that, hey, these are the options. Go take the one which you feel is the best, right? When it comes to our product development. So there could be bookmarklets, easy to use, just to give a big picture of what is happening. There could be browser extensions, which are again easy to use, so fast, but the results are awesome. There are web tools sophisticated enough to understand, to crawl into our pages or web applications, understand the accessibility issues, and accordingly report. And again, integrated development environment where you can have a linter which links you or hints you as you start developing your code. Right? Last but not the least, also give them an understanding of best practices which are available so that they create the code, they write the code in a way it is accessible, right? After all of this done, all of the toolkit and the necessary techniques are made available for them. Also show them what are the frameworks which are available, right? Most often than not, I have seen folks, development community, who are good at certain techniques when it comes to accessibility, but exclusively they kind of say no or they shy away from elements like ARIA, right? But it's not that case, it's easy. So what we have done in Mitratech is we have made an easy to consume, so context sensitive space by which any developer can understand what is ARIA all about. So how did we do it? We made those the samples of ARIA development context sensitive to our application. So these are some screenshots or snippets that you're looking at from the application, where we mention, hey, if you are building this component, you need ARIA 1, which is ARIA described by. And when you click that, it opens another sheet on the same slideshow, which explains how to use ARIA described by and what is ARIA described by. And various pointers, right? These are like noteworthy pointers. Points to remember, how to use, how not to use. Those are elements that we have adapted from various websites, which obviously are W3 specifications, Mozilla documentation, and we have construed in a manner that it is easy to consume. And with all this information, when a developer who is equipped enough gets an understanding of the requirements with respect to accessibility, he's going to be a super accessible developer, right? He's going to start creating accessible applications, look for accessibility problems when he is coding or developing the code, and with sophisticated tools, which one of which being X Auditor from DQ Systems, they will be able to understand what's going on in their applications over a period of time. Let's look at product owner, who is an important stakeholder in the product development cycle. Do you have anyone, do you have any questions? I'll pause for like 2-3 seconds. I take that as a no. Probably the session is so easy to understand and vivid. That's good. So for a product owner, yes, he's an important stakeholder in the product development cycle. And most often than not, he also suffers from the same paradox, which is accessibility being an afterthought. How and why? Because accessibility is always prioritized less and low when it comes to product features. So our product becomes feature factory most often in the plight that it has to sell a lot. It should not, right? So we need to make product owners understand how accessibility can find its place, its niche place in the product roadmap. And how could we do it? These are important ways by which you can really make your product owner bought by the idea of accessibility. You should start something simple. Don't give all details upfront. Start something simple because product owner already goes through a lot, right? In terms of various other features of the product, be it security, features, or timelines, and so on and so forth. Slowly equip them, but equip them enough that at some point in time, they become accessibility partners with you. And you know what? The outcome is going to be an awesome increase in growth in the product's inclusivity. And that's really what you want. So first, start something simple. Show them how and what are the common accessibility issues that creep into any application. I'm not going into details. Once you show them how it happens and how it just creeps in, also tell them how it can impact the product's usage, because people who are using your products could also have some form of the disability, and they could be users of your product, as we just talked about in the designer's perspective. Once such sensitization happens, build a business case along with your product owner. So just include him, and I'm sure he's going to just be your partner right from this stage. Show ways by which we can capture untapped potential, which are hidden in terms of not including folks from an accessibility perspective into your product. Also, it is important when you are emphasizing a gain, you should also think about how you can avert a loss, because loss aversion is a critical step towards winning deals. So you can definitely have this pointer saying how you can lower operational costs when folks who are misfortune, having some problems, right, who have some access needs, call up and ask for customer service and help desk. Also, build a case with respect to the legal perspective, because that's equally important. And yes, your products should align your core values of the company. And if that happens, if that marriage happens, you're going to get the product, which is the vision product. And bring all of these elements and show how your product or the project in your particular product gets impacted by these business metrics. While you perform the test results, right, the testing of your application, go ahead and use an application of your choice. We generally use X DevTools to automate this particular testing, and it's quite easier to do that. And you could see the results out here, right? For all the different pages on the application, what's going on, right? Showcase the results, and you could see the results are daunting. There are so many critical issues out here in our application. And after this, obviously, the product owner is going to feel that, hey, we got to fix this. And he's going to team up the designer and the development team in sprints and get this moving on. And once fixing happens into the application, we got to show the results, right? You could see this here, where only a 7 hour hands-on with the developers of this particular development community, with touching upon like 15 HTML pages that we just saw in the previous page, a whopping 50% reduction of critical issues happened. That's awesome. And that's mind-blowing. So the next question from a product manager's perspective, yeah, this is a cool job. What's next, right? So show them before they ask. The next step is to have an inclusive design toolkit. You know what? This was what we have done before. It's just a start. So the inclusive design toolkit will be the product's future, and it should include what I call PPT, principles, process, and tools. While there are major players who have created principles and philosophies around accessibility, yeah, Mitratech is getting there with a good policy statement which is coming up. Process-driven approach will obviously help us from various legal measures, and we need to know what process and what frameworks are we complying with. We need to have a tool tech stack, right? We need to know, along with the product owner, which tools are we going to use into our POC. Yeah. And with all this, show them how are we today on this, what I call AMM, accessibility maturity model, something in lines of CMM. So show them where are we on this, and also tell them, you know what, we don't need to squeeze this by ourselves, because there are great players in the market who can help us from a technology-based service perspective or consulting, right? And provided we get an awesome tool, a tool which is awesome enough inside the environment of yours, continuous monitoring by the product owner happens over a period of time where he understands what's going on inside the application from a usability, from as an accessibility standpoint, and he becomes an accessibility SME. Going into leadership, it's critical, right? But I take it a little later. Leadership is most often concerned about legal issues. Are there legal implications behind accessibility for our application? You need to solve that for them. Once this particular problem of them or suspicion of them is solved, they are going to think about, hey, what are our competitors doing with respect to this niche skill? So you got to make them understand how do we fare among our competitors in terms of accessibility. And once this has happened, they are just going to remove all your roadblocks and help you decide for the future. When you talk to leadership, show them numbers and factual data. And when you do that, play it safe, don't hard sell, but when you do it with passion. And let's see how we do it at Mitratech. We show some factual data about what's happening with tracker and human resources compliance as a business in terms of DEI, right? Over a period of time. And also sensitized our leadership team with some facts about lawsuits, which is always skyrocketing over a period of time. And you could see that from the charts. This sensitization is enough for our leadership team to understand the fact that, hey, we should not fall in the trap. We should ideally look at what is accessibility and how we would improve accessibility compliance in our applications. So while you do that, also make sure it's not just you talk in the air. Get to ground reality. Talk about some classic lawsuits and the fine folks have paid over a period of time. But yet, if you are able to relate something to your enterprise segment or in an industry, that's the best. And most often than not, leadership would also have this question about prioritization. Hey, you know what? The product has already started its development cycles. Can we fix this at a later point in time? That's a good question they have, for which you should have a great answer. The answer is also simple and it's published. It takes at least 10x of the money to fix an issue when it goes after development. But if it has to be done before, meaning in design or before development, it's going to cost us quite a penny. And again, make sure you lead your leadership team understand the fact that there are great players in the market giving off-the-shelf solutions from various perspectives, and show them the landscape. Where do you want to play, right? Once you select a landscape, go ahead and compare your options which are out there, table it out, find the differences, compare and contrast, and come out with a recommendation. And this recommendation should be basis a lot of features, right? The rationale behind what we took as recommendation towards DQ came out with a lot of mind share across many folks. It's not just a small team which took care of this. Finally, we talked about after all of this suspicion which goes away, then comes a new part, which is what's our competitor going to do? Show them how accessibility is unmet when it comes to your competitors through a chart like this. It's easy to understand. And all that being said, put them into a neat product strategy which shows how and what is your product's vision. Show them how you're going to measure your success, right? Or even failure for that matter, and the KPIs which drive you towards success. Going to the next segment, which is an equally important stakeholder when you want to try and get buy-in, is your customer. And why do you need to do it? Because your customer will resonate with you on the principles that you have followed in building an accessible product, and he's going to appreciate the value proposition that you're going to try and put it inside the product, right? Once it all comes out nice and clear. And for a customer, it's definitely the progress that you need to make sure you imbibe along with him and make him understand over a period of time, we are doing this, we are going to do that, and where will we be over a period of time, and show proof points there in which you're going to have continued engagement with your clients. And this is really how we did it. We showed what we have completed, what's going to be for the future, and what are we currently working on right now. And there is this document, which is called VPAT, stands for Voluntary Product Accessibility Template. And this is the legal document, or this document stands legal when it comes to a lawsuit. And I'm not going to get into the details of the VPAT, but this is all published online. With that being said, we will be able to make all our customers, all our product managers and owners and other stakeholders buy in the fact that accessibility is so important for your business, for your products, for your users. And by the fact that when we design for disabilities, we are actually making things better for everyone. I'm wishing you all the very best for your own journey in your company. Thanks for listening.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Narul. I'm going to move us into the Q&A portion of the exercise. Before I do that, I do have a request, Narul. Could you please share your slide deck with the Q so that we can make that available to the audience?
Sure.
Okay. Let's see here. My first question for you is, let's go. This was about area. The specific area, the specific ARIA resources for your own application seems good approach. How much time did it take? Did you do it all in home, or you used third-party help?
We did it in-house because all that we did, because I mean, I being an accessibility champion, I could relate to the fact that ARIAs are important, but it is not so important when we are talking about semantic HTML, native HTMLs, right? So there is a little bit of information that you need to understand what is ARIA, when to use, how to use, and those are available online. So it takes probably 10 to 20 hours for you to understand all about ARIA, and another 10 hours to just create a material of your choice. So it's probably a week's exercise. And we did that in-house.
Great, great. Thank you. Next question.
Mhm.
The message sent often by AXCON speakers, but also by other accessibility specialists outside this conference, is that accessibility is much more than checking the boxes on the checklist. I wonder how to embody this vision to our colleagues' work when basically the most common recommended solution is giving to them another list with accessibility checkboxes.
Absolutely right. And I totally second this because this is really where we see the outcome and the output, right? When many folks are not even looking at what's going to be their output, we kind of want to get to the stage where we can say, this is the output. And all that I talked about is part of output. There's this big element which is outcome, right? And that is driven by passion and practice. So you need to have an inclusive design practice, which will include a lot of people who come on board. There is an accessibility champion, there is an accessibility SME, an accessibility support network that you need to create to get that moving on within your organization. And that takes time.
Great, great. Thank you. Next question. When you have a parent company who hands down the mandate of meeting accessibility standards to your subsidiary, how do you effectively evangelize the value and the importance of changing the culture of accessibility? How to make internal stakeholders realize this needs to be seen as more than just a top-down business mandate. This is something that we should want to change in our business.
So this is kind of rolling back to the point where I mentioned it's going to be a bottoms-up approach rather than coming from the top down, right? I would say when rain percolates, it's much more easier into the ground. But when something has to come out, emerge from the ground, it's going to take its toll. The idea behind that is when something has to organically grow, it pays its own price. And it's an awesome, satisfying journey that you will get, right? So I believe the fact that accessibility is not one person's job, it is every person's job, right? So starting with our designers, when I talk about designers, I'm just talking about they being the first in the understanding of the requirements page, right? The design discovery stage. So that's really why I'm alluding to designers as the forefront. But designers, product managers, and developers, right? Let alone QA engineers, all of them are need to be evangelists. So you need to make them one. When you get there, obviously, the leadership is going to understand the fact that, you know what, the entire company is upskilled when it comes to accessibility. And when this, as an overall feel, floats in the air, then it's just going to be a nod from the stakeholders, leadership team, just to say that, you know what, let's attempt it.
Great, thank you. Next question. In your presentation, you mentioned providing access to tools to designers, developers, and product owners. It seems that that A11Y testing tools are particularly useful to build a business case. What do you suggest if the company has provided no funds to gain access to some of these critical tools?
Beautiful question. And I mean, all of these are like deja vu experiences for me, to be honest. So I'm going to show you one scenario. This particular test results, I mean, you could see that this is right off coming from Google Sheet, right? We used a tool, but it was just a free tool that we were using at that point in time. So meaning which all tools are available for free trial over a period of time where you can take some advantage, where you can look at how you can use it within your limitations and understand the value that you can provide. So during that trial period, use the best of its abilities and make a proposition. Come out with a story saying, hey, I was able to, or we were able to create or look at this particular tool, get something as an outcome in so much amount of time? What if we were able to get it when we get the full license of the application, which is so powerful, so sophisticated, and it gets it gets so powerful that all of what we have done for a week or two can be done in minutes. That's the story that you will be able to voice it through and vouch for. And obviously, I mean, your leadership is just going to accept the fact that when things are going to become faster, easier, with sophisticated tools, they're going to pay for it. And to be honest, all of these tools that we are talking about are, they don't cost you a bomb.
Great, thank you. Next question. A lot of accessibility progress is based on less immediately obvious efforts, especially since they are hard to score. Training and mentoring versus fixing bugs, for instance. How do you make sure the C-suite gets you the resources for them?
Um, I don't think we are going to get one until we make it. That's how I believe it happens. So you got to train yourself in the field of accessibility if you want to become an accessibility SME or a champion. And it is not a hard nut to crack, right? All it takes is passion and empathy to the next level. Because as UX designers, yes, all UX designers have an understanding of what empathy is towards end users, but here we are looking at a different kind of end users, right? And to empathize with them is takes a little more energy of yours, which if driven by passion, you will definitely get there. That's how I see it when it comes to the design community. From a developer standpoint, it's all about having one more feather on the hat, because accessible development and product development is just going to be the future. In the sense, there are so many technologies which are getting things done faster and easier for accessibility. And if we don't look at it today, I'm sure developers of today will find it missed out for tomorrow.
Great, thank you. Next
Yeah.
question. I've heard a lot about having a dev stack to attempt to bring stakeholders aboard. But what is a part of a strategy when you are not in a position to buy more tech resources and build dashboards?
Mm, okay, if I read the question right, when we talk about tech resources, are they the tools and outsourced solutions that we are getting from external sources?
I
Can it be?
apologize, Narul. All I have is the question in front of me.
Okay, so I take it this way, and I'm going to answer it how I take it. So if it is going to be the tech stack which is coming from an outsourced vendor, first, as I said, it has to be something which we need to do it as a case-to-case basis, right? We need to make sure we are able to prove a point with whatever limitations and resources that we have, provided you are able to come out with a story, a narrative around this. You will be able to prove it to management or leadership team the benefits of going ahead and getting more infra and resources. So I don't think if proved right, or if the story well told, your leadership is going to say a no.
Okay, thank you. That
Sure.
looks like all the questions that I have for us today.
Thanks for all the questions. Great them indeed.
And thank you for the presentation very much.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Jim and Bill, for coordinating.
Absolutely. And thank you to our audience.